A disturbing report has come out from the Chicago Board of Education about the systematic grooming and abuse of children. Now, the story that is on the screen currently is not that story. I want to give you a few moments before we get into the darker element of what's been going on and what's being exposed. And I want to just briefly highlight the cultural elements that are allowing such a thing to occur. And that's why I'm highlighting a story from the Post-Millennial about a trans activist getting a woman fired. I was talking to one of my skate buddies, and they were just saying they don't want to speak out. You know, they don't mind saying some things, but they don't want to get political. It's not them. It's not what they do. They're not interested in talking about these things. And I said to them, listen, dude, I said to him, my guy, there are children today that are skateboarders, and they don't hear a word from you about what you believe in, who you support, who you vote for, what you want for this world. But I'll tell you who they are hearing from: the groomers in their schools and the abusers. Now, the reason why people don't want to speak up is exactly this story. They don't want to get fired. They don't want to risk their lives. And that's what the groomers want. Now, of course, to clarify for this segment, when I'm talking about groomers, the media may lie and say I'm just simply talking about LGBTQ people when I'm not. I'm quite literally only referring to people who are targeting children to groom them. They write in academic papers their intent. They outright say they're doing it. And then they use the media to try and smear people like me or James Lindsay and many others, libs of TikTok, because while they do it certainly more than I do, anyone challenging their attempt to target children must be stopped. So to my friends, as it is fresh in my mind, who are refusing to speak up, you have to. Think about how the kids are being targeted and you aren't there to defend them. You aren't there to be a positive role model. You aren't there to explain your views. Your views do not exist to them. 15-year-old kid right now has no idea what you think because you won't say it. Meanwhile, the schools are abusing them. So let's talk about that. Because we talk about groomer quite a bit, and the media says it's a slur because they're trying to cover up what's really going on. And now we have a report coming out showing just how bad it really is. But it's not all bad news. I do not want to start off a segment leaving you thinking there is nothing but despair. Because in the conversations I have with my friends, people I've known for my whole life, there is a light. People are starting to say, I'm mad as hell and I'm not going to take it anymore. The tides are starting to turn. People are starting to speak up and the funding is beginning to appear. And we very well may, well, I shouldn't say it that way. I'll say we will. We'll win. Why? Because this stuff is wrong. You know, nobody cares. OK, in my company, in my friend group, in my spaces, if you're LGBTQ. In fact, man, more power to you. A lot of friends are LGBTQ. We care about if you're abusing children, like these reports suggest. I'm not talking about, again, the LGBT. I'm talking about people who abuse kids. That's what we're concerned about. So let's read it. And then we'll read this story because I want to make sure we cover the cultural elements here. Before we get started, my friends, head over to timcast.com, become a member, click that beautiful little join us button. You see that right there? Click join us, sign up, become a member, support our work directly. As a member, you'll get direct access to uncensored members only segments of the Timcast IRL podcast, a huge library of content from a ton of people like Alex Jones and Steve Bannon. And it's good fun. Not so family friendly, so you've been warned. But it helps support the work we're doing. And I will say this, for this segment, for those that didn't hear in the other segments, this Saturday, coming up, I will be in Washington, D.C. at Freedom Plaza to skate. And I want you all to come and hang out. I'm going to bring my friends. We're going to have a good time. Maybe 50 people show up. Maybe 500 people show up. Maybe nobody shows up. Maybe nobody cares that I'm going to be there. You know, okay, cool. I'm just saying it because I'm not afraid. I'm going to live my life. I'm going to do my thing. I'm going to skate. I'm going to have fun. I'm hanging out with my friends. And I want you to do the same as well. I don't want to sit here and ask you to speak up and then not be in a forward-facing position. Now, don't get me wrong. I think doing these shows and doing these segments is quite literally speaking up. I do it for a living. But no. I will physically appear in these spaces too. Become a member at timcast.com. To support us if you agree with our cultural endeavors. We're setting up a coffee shop in physical location, skate shop, skate company. We're doing a whole bunch of cultural stuff. Obviously, we're doing music. We're going to keep doing it. We're going to keep doing it no matter what. And we're going to try and provide funding and opportunity to people who are going to have an impact as well. Let's jump into the first story. And the reason why I held off on showing this clip in the immediate was because it's tough. It's tough, and it's going to piss off a lot of people. I mean, you are going to read this and you are going to say, I am I'm mad about this. This is why we need you to speak up. This is why I'm willing to go and stand and announce my presence and say, look, I'm here, dude. You got beef? I don't know you. I don't care. We cannot allow this grooming and this manipulation of children to persist. The story from the Daily Caller. Inspector report found hundreds of Chicago teachers allegedly sexually groomed and raped students. Chicago Board of Education's Office of Inspector General annual report found hundreds of Chicago public schools teachers were accused of adult-to-student sexual misconduct in the 21 to 22 school year. The OIG's Sexual Allegation Unit opened 447 cases investigating teachers for allegedly grooming, assaulting, or raping CPS students last school year, following the 325 opened in 2021. Of the open cases, the SAU closed 600 over the past 12 months, according to the OIG annual report reported by Chicago City Wire. SAU investigated a Chicago high school substitute teacher for grooming several students for sex and engaging in acts with them, with at least one on school property, the OIG found. The CPS teacher allegedly talked to students about their sex lives in person and through social media, cell phones, and other common grooming techniques. Whoa, 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 whoa. According to the OIG, you mean talking to students about their sex lives is grooming? I was told that's just claiming that gay people exist. Interesting. The report stated the teachers gave the student unnecessary passes to exclude her from class and encouraging students to confide in him about personal problems. SAU claims he made intimate physical contact with students, including kisses, hugs, back rubs, openly solicited acts such as kissing a student to recruit another student for a multiple party endeavor. SAU reported the JROTC staff member and the students exchanged hundreds of text messages that were overtly sexual, including "I'm ready to F. I'm not going to be gentle either." Chicago Police Department arrested the JROTC staff member and charged him with 8 counts of criminal assault and 1 of aggravated criminal abuse, according to the report. Several of the open cases involving CPS-affiliated adults exposing students to pornographic images included one high school teacher who accessed porn while he was sharing his screen with minor students. Let me do this. Right here, I got a book. It's called Genderqueer. I got no issue with the queer people involved in that book. I have an issue with the behaviors they've engaged in, such as the pushing of this book on children, which includes pornographic images. That's it. I don't care that Maya Kobabe is non-binary. Live your life, man. Be free. Be happy. No problems. Dave Rubin gets a lot of flack because he adopted some kids. People on the right are criticizing him. I like Dave Rubin. And I think, I hear a lot of criticism of the guy. And, it gives me pause. And I hear these things and I'm like, did Dave really do that? Did Dave really say that? And then you sit down and talk with the guy and you're like, screw the haters, man. Dave's legit. I like Dave Rubin. I know nobody's perfect, but Dave's got some kids and he's gay married. And you know what? I'm glad he has kids because those kids are going to be raised by someone who knows what the F they're talking about. For all the criticisms you could say of Dave, for all the things you think he gets wrong, that's fine. But he's a classically liberal guy who at the very least is pushing back on the wokeness. And this means that we can have diversity in the true sense. This means that we can have good people, LGBTQ or otherwise. It's not about that. But I'll put it simply, I think Dave's going to be a good dad. And I want to stress that point because we need more people of good ideas who believe in responsibility, meritocracy, and all those things, individual liberties, to be raising kids. And some people on the right don't like it because they don't want kids raised around this stuff or introduced to it. I think parents can decide what they think is appropriate for their kids, and that has varying degrees. The issue with the schools, the teachers are hiding it from parents. They're grooming the kids by showing them pornographic materials. They're putting books like this in the schools that have images in it that children should not be looking at. Now, if a parent decides it's right for their kids and they want to, well, then there's some questions because it's not always so easy. Parents should not be showing their kids outright pornographic materials, but there is a question of what is appropriate sex ed for kids. And you know what? I defer to parents in a lot of ways. And that means in some circumstances, don't get me wrong, the school might want to have a sex ed thing talking about LGBT stuff. I got no issue as long as the parents know and there's a line that's not being crossed. Putting these books in schools without telling parents, that's the line. Several of the open cases involved CPS-affiliated adults exposing students to pornographic images. Isn't that funny? The report applauded the OIG's SAU's ability to manage its extraordinarily high case volume without compromising the quality of its investigations. Isn't it funny that they're outright saying what we've been calling out as grooming? There are other stories, like this one from December 1st. Oklahoma principal pastor groomed and assaulted male students, federal lawsuit. Cody Barlow, 33, is alleged to have groomed male students before abusing them. It happens a lot. I want to throw it to our good friend James Lindsay, because he points out exactly what's going on with the grooming. This is something you need to understand. James Lee says, why expose so many kids to drag in schools? To stimulate their, quote, queer imagination. That's what it says. The playful practice of queer imagination in early childhood. He says, well, this looks so interesting. Drag queen, quote, Drag Queen Story Hour provides a generative extension of queer pedagogy into the world of early childhood education. Generative equals Frere, by the way. As I've been saying, the drag queens are about creating generative themes in education. Quite literally, they admit to grooming. He says, wow, the point of Drag Queen Story Hour in schools, according to the first paragraph of this fascinating paper, is to bring reading each other to filth to early childhood education, to bring queer knowing and being to young children. Grooming. That's what they said. That's what they said. James Lindsay tweeted, reading foundational queer theory, their dialectic opposite of innocence is initiation. It's a Gnostic cult. And this explains so much. In particular, it explains their war on childhood innocence. The cult. Let me explain. My buddies who skate are worried about getting canceled because these skate companies have become overtly woke. They've allowed the cult to infiltrate. Screw them. Start doing your thing. Figure it out. You cannot bend the knee to cult members. And they are. Wokel Distance tweets, before you dismiss what James is saying here, think of it this way. Woke gender theorists have built an ideology that says men can give birth, women can have penises, and children can change and select their gender. Their problem is nobody else believes this but them. That means that the people who believe their ideology are like a little club. They all believe this and want to spread their ideology to anyone they can. But how are they going to do this? Their beliefs are so absurd that any clear-thinking adult is going to reject them. With that said, here's what's going on. The woke gender theorists think they are special and have access to knowledge the rest of us don't have. Gender theorists think the rest of us have been brainwashed by society into thinking all humans are either male or female. Woke gender theorists think that all of society was created by straight white males to advance their goals, prestige, power, privilege, and interests of straight white males. And for that reason, literally everything in society is structured to advance the interests. Hence why they say white supremacy. They're not literally talking about white supremacy. They're talking about this insane cult worldview of straight white males. Everything. Hockey, buildings, McDonald's, the English language, roads and highways, the sewer system, light posts. Everything in society is built for the benefit of straight white males. Everything in society is built by and for straight white males. Everything in society either implicitly or explicitly perpetuates the assumptions and ideas of straight white males. And if no one else is aware of this perpetuation of no one else is aware, the perpetuation of straight male ideas is happening. So the gender theorists think the way straight males have structured society ensures everybody in society is swimming in a sea of straight male ideas and being socialized to accept their ideas without realizing it. Everyone, that is, except woke gender theorists. Everyone is asleep at the wheel, casually being socialized into straight male idea. Some examples are what we're being socialized into. Everyone is either male or female. Only women give birth. Only men can have penises. Men and women are different, etc., etc. You get the point. How is this happening? How is it that the schools are initiating people? This is why I said, there's a quote on my Wikipedia page that Tim Pool doesn't believe in the left-right paradigm. He believes in the uninitiated and the initiated. This means that there are people who don't know what's going on and they want to be left alone. Initiated means they have been approached and presented with ideas. It's in essence a politically neutral way to say woke or red-pilled. Woke means the same thing. You've adopted the ideas of the woke cult. You now see what they see. Red-pilled means you've woken up to what the cult is. You now see what we see. I just say initiated. You have taken a person who is not paying attention. You have given them the information. Now they're involved. Red-pilled kind of exemplifies it in any way, but they've seen the world for what it is. But I don't know which direction that is. I'm just saying they can see something happening. How is this spreading so rapidly to children? I give you the story I brought up in the beginning. Trans activist gets woman fired from video game company for crime of following Ian Miles Chong and libs of TikTok on Twitter. So I had a conversation. I've had many conversations. Pro skateboarders, man, I've been harping on for a little bit because, we're planning on launching some skate stuff. There's a handful of pro skaters who are legit and just scream to the high heavens. And there are many who won't. So as I stated in the early part of this segment, I'll explain and then we'll read the story. You right now, you sitting there, my friend, who won't speak up, understand that around you in your community, there are children. There are teenagers. They are absorbing what they hear and what they see. And you've shut up. That means your ideas don't exist to them. That 13-year-old kid, he never heard of your heroes. John Locke. Who's that? Certainly knows who Marx is, though, because you won't speak up. That's how they win. In 10 years, that kid's going to be voting. And he's going to be like, I have no idea what you're talking about. You're going to say, dude, don't you know anything? No, I've never even heard of these people. And it's because 10 years prior, you wouldn't speak up. And this is what they want. This is why they'll get you fired for simply even just following somebody. The Post-Millennial reports. On Friday, the video game company Limited Run Games fired their community manager, Kara Lynn, after a far-left trans activist demanded the company either fire Lynn because she followed conservative users or lose their support. Ian Miles Chong tweeted that this happened, basically. According to an Observer article from 2012, Purple Tinker is a biological male who identifies as transgender. An activist who founded BronyCon, a convention for adult men who like to dress up as characters from My Little Pony. Chong posted the screenshot. The community manager for Limited Run Games at Carolyn0326 is a transphobe who follows a veritable who's who of right-wing transphobic creeps. Unless and until she is fired from the company permanently, I am not giving them another single dime. Purple Tinker tweeted at the company on January 6th. At 5:40, that Twitter account, Limited Run Games, said, LRG respects all personal opinions. However, we remain committed to supporting an inclusive culture. Upon investigating a situation, an employee was terminated. Our goal as a company is to continue to foster a positive and safe environment for everyone. That's interesting. What did Carolyn do? She followed some people? I follow leftists and people on the right. It's a cult. This is the point. They don't want you following them because you learn. They don't want anyone to hear what you have to say because they are grooming kids, politically and sexually. If you don't speak up now, the children will grow up and they'll have nothing. They will believe nothing. James Lindsay posts this image, a Twitter user who said, if you support women and queer liberation, you must also support children liberation, not to deny it. Because many of these people are outright pedos. And they're using this to their advantage. But they're just basically trying to destroy the system. It's a chaotic force. There's no good that comes of this. If our structures collapse, it's not white males. There are many people of various backgrounds who've contributed to the success of this country. And it's silly because if you look at Japan, certainly not males, and China, for instance, yet they have a massive impact on the world and technology as well. What a silly prospect. Straight white males. It's not all bad news, my friends. I implore you to speak up, to make sure that young people are hearing your ideas, same as they're hearing any other idea. But we have this from the Post-Millennial as well. 11 states move to criminalize child sex change treatments under newly proposed laws. Republican state lawmakers are seeking to ban gender-affirming care for youth due to the complete lack of quality evidence to support it, the irreversible nature of the interventions, and the sharply rising rates of detransition. Oh, I love you post-millennial guys, because they always have clips where you can clearly see it's the Timcast IRL studio. Hey, that's where I'm at right now. Super cool. More than 20 bills aimed at criminalizing child sex changes have been introduced at the beginning of the 2023 legislative sessions, reports the Associated Press. Republican state lawmakers are seeking to ban so-called gender-affirming care for youth due to the complete lack of quality evidence to support it, the invasive and irreversible nature of the interventions, and the sharply rising rates of detransition and regret. But you see, if they surgically alter you, they trap you. They remove you from the gene pool. They are sterilizing children. To what end? Don't look at me. Maybe it's because they believe in the rights of kids. Okay, well, then what about the right of that kid to grow up and be able to reproduce and have a family? They take that away. Billions of years of evolution will end with you if you do not have children. Never forget. It's kind of a scary thought, to be completely honest. Every single person before you successfully reproduced. That's a fact. Until you have a family, my friends. 11 states, Kansas, Kentucky, Missouri, Montana, New Hampshire, Oklahoma, South Carolina, Tennessee, Texas, Utah, and Virginia have proposed legislation to protect children and adolescents from what one pediatric neurosurgeon recently called an extraordinary medical atrocity. The interventions performed by gender-affirming care providers include experimental puberty blockers, cross-sex hormones, the combination of which is thought to leave the young person infertile. Next comes surgery. I'm going to say it, and you've been warned. The surgery on a young biological male is to create a wound, to graft intestinal material into the wound for one singular purpose: for someone to gratify themselves by inserting themselves into the wound. I'm sorry if it's I don't know, hard to listen to. Women and men have body parts. They perform functions. The women have a body part for which they can birth a child. Men have a body part for which they can present their genetic material to the female. In these surgeries, they create for females who want to be male, a chunk of muscle and blood vessels wrapped in skin from the arm or legs to simulate an organ that serves no real purpose. And for males who want to be female, they graft a wound that must be kept open, a wound that an individual would use to pleasure themselves. There is no reproduction. There is no purpose beyond that. Thinking about it that way, to me, I was just like, this is crazy. You know, there are many trans people we've had on the show, we respect, that just say outright there's no point in bottom surgery because it doesn't do anything other than create a wound for someone else's pleasure. And that's kind of a horrifying thought in many ways. Now, we don't want people to end their lives. We don't want people to be depressed. We don't want people experiencing severe gender dysphoria to the point where they don't want to be alive, because we don't want people to die. And so we need to find alternatives to whatever this thing is that we're doing. Because it clearly, if you look at the data, it doesn't work. It doesn't work. But these laws, in my opinion, show that it's not all bad news. I mean, that initial report that I highlighted, that's scary stuff, man. The grooming is happening. They know it. But there is pushback. There is change. Take a look at this. From timcast.com. Seattle public schools sue social media platforms for worsening mental health crisis among students. Well, that's really cool. I'm not a big fan of Seattle, but yeah. Social media apps are driving a lot of this depression and identity crisis for people. They don't know who they are. They don't believe. Ideas aren't being given to them. For every kid who doesn't know their own gender because they're confused, I want you to remember that those of you who didn't speak up, said nothing. These kids need guidance. They need a culture and a community of people who are saying, this is not. They're not getting it because you're scared. Don't be scared. I don't know what else to say. But the pushback is here, along with the banning of these laws. People are speaking up. From the College Fix. Professor advises students to report scholars who bash white people or Christians to DEI office. I have said this for years. Yes, do this. If you work at a job and they come up to you and they're like, white people are bad, say, hey, that's racist. Go to the HR and say they were making racist comments. And if they say, what were the racist comments? Be like, I will not repeat them. Remember the Netflix guy? He was explaining what words were offensive. So they fired him. He didn't call anybody a name. He just said, here's a list of words that are offensive. He was forced into HR and they said, what did you do? And it was like explaining these words were offensive. What words? These ones. He said them. Fired. So you at your job and someone says white people, Christians, immediately go to HR and say, Jane Doe, she was saying a whole bunch of racist stuff and I want it taken care of now. If they try and use the DEI woke garbage, call them out. Now, some people have said, yeah, but the HR department won't listen. Yeah, they will. The whole reason they're doing this is because they're scared of liability. They're scared of being sued. You go to them and say they made a bunch of racist comments and they're going to be like, what did they say? Or they may just say, we'll take care of it. But if they ask you what they said, say, you will never get me to repeat those horrible words. They said racist things. They disparaged people based on their race. That's it. I am done bringing it up. I told you it happened and I want it taken care of. That's what I'd do, at least. That's what I'd do. I'd be like, they were ragging on people's religions and they were insulting religions. They will get a talking to. Company doesn't care what they said. They won't know. They're just going to be like, you can't do that. Then these people are going to be like, uh-oh. And then we go back to the meritocratic way. We go back to the don't rag on people based on their race or religion regardless. College Fix says, a professor recently began to advance his idea on how to combat onerous progressive ideologies on campus. Go to the HR offices, go to the Title IX offices, go to the DEI offices. Conservative students should file complaints for speech that attacks their identity, especially when it comes from a professor. Quote, there is a perception that the DEI and Title IX offices exist just to support leftist activism. There's nothing keeping students from filing complaints on the basis of their own protected classes. You could be a straight white male. It doesn't mean you can't be protected by Title IX. He said Title IX, as it's interpreted today, protects from anything that creates a hostile environment for a student on the basis of their sex, gender, religion, orientation, etc. For example, if a professor vitriolically bemoans the scourge of heterosexual male Christians during lectures, that could be the basis for a complaint. So go file it. Really is that simple. Now, you can go in there and say he was ragging on white people and they may say, get out. Or you can just say what I said and be like, I am not going to repeat those words. It was so horrible. I am deeply offended. I am tired of hearing them say racist things. And they're going to go in and say, stop talking about race. We're going to get sued. And he's going to be, I don't know what I said. I don't know what I said. Because in their brains, they're like, it's not racist when we rag on people based on race. That's what they think. So make them. Put up or shut up. He goes on to say, he told The Fix it would force the DEI office to investigate one of their own. What's more, he added, the professor who loves critical race theory and explaining how white people are the worst, it's going to make them think twice. That's right. If they have been through a 7-month ordeal with the DEI office. Finally, and perhaps most importantly, it creates a paper trail. You force the DEI office into establishing a track record. If they find in favor of a black student or Hindu student, but then come to a male and say, I don't like how my professor talks about toxic masculinity, they are finding no fault. It exposes the bias at the heart of the DEI agenda that we can really only infer at this point. The paper trail gives you legal grounds. When this guy of this race said X, they said Y. When this guy of this race said X, they said Y. When I did it, they said Z. You can't do that. That doesn't mean you'll always win. These battles are not so easy. But you need to speak up lest we see more of this horrifying news about what's happening to kids. If you stand by and say nothing, just know there'll be more kids who are groomed and abused. In 10 years, those kids will vote. Many of them having been sterilized or their lives ruined. I hope you understand what your silence means. Your silence isn't violence. That's stupid. Said it in a different segment. I'll be more logical. Your silence is their ability to take over. Your silence is you retreating from the battlefield and saying to them, by all means, win the culture war. That simple. We don't need to storm capitals. That's stupid. We don't even need massive protests. We just need people to say no. I did it. Look where it got me. I worked for Fusion. They said, just side with the audience. I said no. They said, all right, well, here's some money. Now will you say it? I said no. They give me a big bonus. Then I said, is my contract up? Can I go home now? Finally, the contract ended and I said, bye. I would rather be unemployed, worrying about, you know what? I guess I'm going to go work at a movie theater or a comic shop, but I'll figure it out. You know, I'm reminded of Malcolm in the Middle. It's a great show. This is a really funny bit they did where There's, I think it was Reese. If you've seen Malcolm in the Middle, there's three brothers. I don't remember the older brother's name, but Reese and Malcolm. And this teacher has got it out for Reese, the one of the older kids, second oldest, and just ruining his life. And then she basically says to him, you know, I'm not going to let you do this. And he goes, if you try and stop me, I will ruin your gifted son's life. And she goes, I don't care. Malcolm's smart. He doesn't need help. Reese is the one who needs help. So I'm going to do everything I can for him. And the guy's like, oh. And he's like, you wouldn't sacrifice your own child. And just then the oldest brother's banging on the window in a storm, like, let me in. I don't want to be asked. And then she laughs. Great show. It was really funny. But anyway, I'm reminded of this. So my point is, it feels to me like the school system is that they're saying you would never risk your life or yourself for anyone else. And you know what's unfortunate is that in a lot of ways, they're right. And because people aren't speaking up, they're abusing your kids. Your kids are being abused in schools. They're being groomed. They are being assaulted. They are being given explicit materials. And the Democrats are trying to help them keep doing more of it. For one simple reason. You wouldn't just say no. No, hold on. I know a lot of you do say it. I'm not saying all of you. I'm just saying there are a handful of people out there. There are a lot of people out there, to be honest, who are just like, I would rather my kids, experience this than me do anything to stop it. There's a harsh reality I understand. And that is that if you lose your job, maybe you can't even feed your kid. And so the choice is feed my kid or have them be groomed. Look, I don't have kids, so it's easier for me to say, right? I get it. So I won't. But I kind of feel like you'd rather your kid go hungry than be groomed by a stranger. Not all schools are bad, just most of them. They have these books sitting in their libraries for your kids to read, to look at. If you don't care, then fine, whatever. But if you do and you won't speak up, it'll only get worse. I'll leave it there, my friends. Thanks for hanging out. Next segment's coming up at 6 p.m. over at youtube.com/TimCastNews. Hey, I got more of those 3 p.m. segments because they were fun. I felt like doing it. I just feel like we were going to do the live show in the morning and it didn't work out the way I wanted to. So I was just like, I'll just record more segments, to do something. It's fun. I like hanging out in the studio. Then after that, we got Timcast IRL at 8 p.m. You don't want to miss it. It's going to be good fun. I think we're going to have a big show tonight. We got some really big guests. I'm really excited for this. So thanks for hanging out. Smash that like button, subscribe to this channel, share the show with your friends, and we'll see you all in the next segment.